Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bharat with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video we're going to explore Sanatan Economics. Now one of you have actually, I think more of you have sent me a video on this one, and I started watching it and just for myself, and then I realized maybe it's a good video for a reaction. It felt very, very interesting for me. So I'm super curious what I'm able to share from my end and what I'm able to learn from about this from your end. And before we jump into today's video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
okay, so let's get into this. I'm going to split this video into two parts because it's an hour and something long video. So this will be the part one, and I'll just see where I'm able to kind of somehow cut it into half, so it's just not too extensive. But I say, let's hit it.
West is definitely not a culture which should be inspired from.
They don't have any culture. Your eyes, your skin, your nose, your height, everything is from Prabhu Shri Ram. Okay, irrespective of what fancy dress you do. Familist, Family. Otherwise, they'll come with feminists.
Wow.
I don't want that.
We have seen the Massachusetts Institute declare that Newton copied the laws from Vaisheshika Shastra.
Men and women are different. That is why they are marrying. Otherwise, if they were equal, why would they marry? Certainly, Pakistan occupied Kashmir is something that we need to have. I mean, if I would want it before elections, because why will not I flaunt it if I've achieved it?
When you look at what goes into the minds of Amit Shah ji and Modi ji, it's really, really
Like
incredible.
visionaries.
Incredible. Movies are doing a lot of damage. News is doing a lot of damage.
Just look at the last 30 years, the serial content. They will show man has absolutely no role other than an ATM card. So Sanatan Economics says, rest all the world is okay. What you need to fix is yourself. Abrahamic Economics is saying you are okay. Force everything else into your formula.
Sanatan Dharma is the way forward for the entire world.
It used to be university campuses inside the Mandir campuses, and now you see in the university campus one small demo Mandir. That's a chart of our downfall. 15th August 1947 was just a politically negotiated Independence Day. Now we are waiting for a civilizational Republic Day, and that will come when in the constitution document you replace the word secular with a dharmic.
Wow. Waiting for it. Namaskaram, Ankit ji.
Namaskar.
You speak a lot about Sanatan Economics. How is it different from Abrahamic Economics?
Well, the concept of Sanatan Economics is based on life cycles. Okay. Because Dharma says that this is not the only life you got. So the difference between how ancient Bharat used to model its economics is contrast with the rest of the world. So the rest of the world thinks that you are the body and soul is just a vehicle. Bharat says you are the soul, body is just a vehicle. So all their economic models are based on one life concept. Now what happens?
Okay, I'll just stop quickly here. I would agree based on what he's saying, but I think that spirituality, perhaps that is being brought in from India across the world, across the Western world, is also adopting the concept that there are crazy amounts of people that are waking up and realizing that you're not the body, but you're the soul. So yeah, I'm not saying that's the majority of people in the West, but certainly over the next 10 years, it has been a major increase in that belief system. But let's continue.
Is when you think that this is the only life you got, your focus becomes the material factor of production. From the four main factors of production, the Abrahamic economics focuses on the material factor of production because they think that material is what is wealth, okay, which is finite, and they got one life. So they need to consume everything in this very life, which is they derived this debt-based model that pass on the debt to the next generation, consume it right now, which is why you see their economic models, they make words like gun culture, war economy, right? Because they link it with capturing as many resources as they can. And this also translates into geopolitics, where they say that we have made an exclusive group of democratic nations, and then this group is made against another group. Okay, so that's a mob-based culture, mob-based objective in geopolitics as well, wherein they force us and tell Bharat, you pick either of the two. And you know the EAE, our external minister, confronting them, we are not going to join one exclusive group. So this is how Abrahamic economics comes about. Now, when you talk about what it translates into on ground, job as an empowerment model has come just about the last 400 years. It came with the pound as a single country reserve currency status. So they glorified this thing where Britishers wanted to pack you into the four walls for 15 long years, essentially feminize men by testing memory. Memory has no role in the real market. Okay, so within that four walls for 15 years, the product that comes out is totally blank about the market. There's no scope of entrepreneurship, and what you have to end up is with a job. So where they consider man and women both as just a factor of production, they introduced this co-education concept in the British classroom. They didn't wanted colonials to question them, okay, for independence or things like that. So they just wanted slaves coming out so they can do human trafficking from classroom to jobs. And that is how that 18th century industrialization and all that concepts came. These are the concepts of Abrahamic economics, which is why today, as an outcome of that, because you base those models on one life, they've lost all the birth rates. They deployed women for shoring up the GDP temporarily in the fertile years, and they've lost the birth rates. The US has lost the birth rates, the EU has lost it, Japan has lost it, Russia has lost it, it's over, China has lost it. So this is what happens in Abrahamic economics. Similarly, when you look at the Middle East, though that entire economics, which is based on, again, material factor of production, that crude oil which is coming for free from the soil. Now, that crude oil is going to have, what, 10 to 15 years of importance with the UN climate goals and the SDG goals that we have. And even otherwise, the way the countries are shifting and in trying to find out innovations for alternatives of energy, what they're going to do next after the crude oil is gone. So this is what happens with the Abrahamic economic models. It's just designed for one life. They don't know what to do next. So in Europe, when they lost the birth rates, they have opened the borders, and you know what the outcome is. Now, when we talk about Sanatan Economics model, where we are being told that you never had any institution, for 1800 years, if you're giving on an average 27% GDP to the world, certainly we had an institution, and our institution was a Mandir, which is why I keep talking about revival of the Mandir ecosystem. Now, this is just one part of Sanatan Economics model. There's another part which is a family unit entrepreneurship model. There are three more. This will come in the next book. But when you just focus on the Mandir ecosystem, you know that the entire cash flow is designed in a way that it marks with the tithis of the activities in the Mandir, and that generates cash flow into the system, and that too in a celebratory format. So the cash is moving in a celebratory format from the rich people to the hands of the lower strata of the society. Now, when you look at all the ancient Bharat activities, you'll realize that right from each and every state activity, right from the birth of a new child or a marriage in the royal family, the entire procession will move from one mandir to the next mandir. And in that entire procession, there will be grants being given by the king, the monarch. The entire concept of social welfare, where we say you won't be given any kind of freebies, but your body will be empowered with a prasad. Okay, so you are empowered with a prasad. That minimum food security is maintained. Nobody feels entitled to take that prasad, and the money with which that prasad is given, the donor cannot even feel arrogant because he is depositing to the Lord. Okay, so this was the concept of social welfare. Now you compare that with the Abrahamic economics. The social welfare is you put a gun on the head of someone who's generating money, collect tax, and give to the freebies crowd, and enlarge the role of the state. So there are contrasting difference in both the models over here.
You said it very beautifully when you actually, very sorry to come in the middle. When you said about the identity with the physical body, the difference between the other Abrahamic religions and Sanatan Dharma, we rooted in the sadhana and the spiritual ethos itself means the evolution is so brilliantly put here, and person is given an opportunity. There are methods to systematically evolve to a higher, deeper state.
You are working only on the manufacture of production. So Sanatan Economics says, rest all the world is okay. What you need to fix is yourself. Okay. Abrahamic Economics is saying you are okay. You just force everything else into your formula.
That is giving a top seat to arrogance.
Certainly, certainly. And there is no case of, because this falls into commandments method, the brain is designed in a fashion in Abrahamic countries that you cannot question anything for yourself. So the only thing you can question is others.
Yes, that is there, and we are such a brilliant generation. We are such a brilliant lot of people where questioning is allowed to any extent. Even gods were questioned.
Yes, yes.
And so they had time to answer everything. This comes from a clarity where anything can be answered and you can be given clarity.
Yes, one is a science of seeking and another is a belief systems. So the science of seeking is going to be the natural way, how it used to be.
That is what even when Sadhguru says on world stage, whatever the human being is doing right now, machines are capable of doing. What is the difference between you and them? Machines are smart enough to calculate, remember things. They can remember more than a human being does. So what is the difference? The difference is how evolved you are, and how sensible and how compassionate a human being, and how much
They are
clarity you have.
equating now human beings with the machine, not just equating now, the machines are going to take over humans. So that is what is happening sadly in their society, where they do not have any sense of identity or origin or a pride or ancestral wisdom, any respect for that, because everything is hyper consumerized because of this one life consumption model. You got only one life, so now you are under panic to get everything just now, which is why you see puppet regime change. These are operations, right? Because they derive this war economic, because you do not understand how to earn money without damaging anyone else. So that is what happens with Abrahamic economics.
So is it fair enough to say India becoming the Vishwaguru will settle?
Okay, I'll just stop there. He's talking about interesting concepts, and certainly, okay, I'll mention it at the very end. But yeah, the thing is, it definitely is hyper consumerized over here, and as a result of that, I think it's a very from that I don't really think that people are that selfish, to be honest, but I think because of the how system is being set up, everyone just cares about themselves. um doesn't mean that the people here don't help each other or you don't have nice people here, but I think it's, you're talking capitalism. That's the system, and that's how it's been built, right? So for sure it's hyper consumerist, and I think that's personally what is killing the world. Although many argue that no better system has been thought of. I mean, you have social democratic systems in Europe like Sweden, Norway, the Nordic countries, and it seems to be working there. I know that they also have natural resources, and that's perhaps another part in the equation why they're successful. But I think like things could be done in a way that it's taught after as well. But I like the idea of Sanatan presenting an alternative, which is really nice, and I think obviously he's right at but it's again, like, to me everything comes down to capitalism, where it's all about the profit, and the West is absolutely driven by the profit. So if you perhaps, let's say, haven't lived or experienced this culture and you only ever spend time in India, it might be very hard for you to understand that, just like it's very hard for me to understand how things are working in India and what the belief system and setup is over there. But let's continue.
The world for peace?
Certainly, most certainly. Because see, it is very unfortunate, because I see many of experts talking about the superpower status. It is very unfortunate that a civilization like ours need to borrow a concept from someone who's just born 500 years back. It's very unfortunate. Now, what's the difference between the concept of superpower and Vishwaguru? Superpower concept means that when your foreign minister is going to a country, you're flying bombers on the top and then negotiating. So it's basically domination, exploitation, and imposition of policies and beliefs. The concept of Vishwaguru is totally opposite. The concept of guru comes from the derivation that the one who takes you towards light from dark. Okay, now what does that mean? The disciple is coming to the guru and saying, I want to learn something from you. This is Vishwaguru status. Okay, because I see a lot of experts who are aligned to the Western thought process, making fun of the Vishwaguru status without even understanding what that is. Because we are not calling for domination, exploitation of resources of others. We are saying that we will be at a point, at a stage, where others will come to us asking what rectification they can make in their policies to achieve what we have achieved. So of course that status is far as yet, because that will be around 2047. That's what the target is. That's what the Prime Minister says.
But previously we were that power.
We always have been. So the problem is, I mean, I get this question that if we were so intelligent, why did we lose? If we were so great, why did we lose?
Pracham has brought out a beautiful documentary, Saheb, so where they have given a line of explanation in just 30 minutes of how this destruction happened, of losing it. I understood it is because we lost Gurukuls. You can have your point.
So losing the education format and the Mandir ecosystem, certainly a big part of it. But when they entered Bharat, I mean, in different times of periods, the invasions, my understanding was that we were at an advanced stage of governance where we were governed by autonomous janapadas. Now, what happens when you are advanced and someone is an infant, which is poor and coming with a brute force? Your defense was split. It was not consolidated at the center. This is what made the regional janapadas compete with each other, and that is what they exploited. So the problem with us was we were at an advanced state of governance where we distributed the governance, even the defense. We were not centralized defense. Okay, they came with a centralized defense brute force, and their stomach was empty. That's the difference between it.
Yes. And what they destroyed is not just Bharat, it is the world's wisdom.
Certainly, because this was the storehouse of wisdom, not just in terms of the Mandir, what the Mandir accumulated, but even in terms of the cultural conscience which the people had. They destroyed that as well, right? So it has been a big devastation, and we can simply chart the journey of this civilization towards a downfall. The way we see it used to be university campuses inside the Mandir campuses, and now you see in the university campus one small demo Mandir. That's the chart of our downfall.
The brilliant sages who are better than the scientists of the West. In fact, all the books were stolen from here, and then it is getting rebound from the West. We have seen the Massachusetts Institute declare that Newton copied the laws from Vaisheshika Shastra. That brilliance is gone into caves now.
That's because, see, in Abrahamic economics, to be a scientist, you have to first be atheist, because there's a belief systems where the science of seeking does not work. Now ours is a science of seeking, so we don't need to be atheist to be a scientist, right? Because all our rishis were scientists, right? So I think the revival of Mandir ecosystem is the path that we need to take. And 22nd January 2024, as I say, is our Civilizational Independence Day. Uh, 15th August 1947 was just a politically negotiated Independence Day. Now we are waiting for a Civilizational Republic Day, and that will come when in the constitution document you replace the word secular with a dharmic.
Wow. Waiting for it.
We are waiting for that Civilizational Republic Day with lots of hopes on this government.
Ankitji, the US dollar hegemony constitutes a monopoly on a global stage. Today, Bharat is promoting its currency on a world stage. Can Indian rupee become an alternative to dollar in future?
Well, at this trajectory, what we are seeing in geopolitics, none of the four powers, Bharat, Russia, China, or US, currently in a position to run the world with a single country reserve currency format. None of the four. Which means they will have to compromise to go to a model which is a multi-currency basket that leads a multipolar world. Now, what happens with the Bharatiya rupee is it certainly has good features as a savings currency, but we do not have the size of the manufacturing and the industrial heft that requires to back it up. I mean, we are on this process of building that. We haven't reached that stage. So single country reserve currency format is not the way. I mean, the world, all the victims have gathered in BRICS Plus. So these are all the victims of that single country reserve currency format. So they are not okay with that unipolar world, which is why they have gathered. Okay, now when China pushes BRICS Plus, what does that mean is they tried yuan for 3 long years. It did not work. It's laughable, which is why they are also giving up that vision of a unipolar world. They are also pushing BRICS, which means whatever the new format comes, it's going to be a multi-currency basket, how the international trade need to be governed. Now, what happened with that unipolar world was, as our EM rightly says, that there was concentration of manufacturing at one place and concentration of printing of currency at one place. Now, what we are looking at through this decade is China plus 10 in manufacturing. We are looking at US dollar plus 10 in currencies. And similarly, the defense will also have to be China, Russia, US, India, and 6 more countries doing their own research for defense and taking that shoulder of security of the trade routes. So this is where the world is heading towards. So I don't see a single country format coming up, at least for the next 2 decades.
So Ankitji, in 22, Raghuram Rajan, while talking about Rahul Gandhi, predicted that India would be lucky to achieve 5% growth in GDP, but the reality is totally different. We have surpassed expectations with a robust 8.3 growth in Q3, beating all major economies. What would you like to say about this fake analysis and spreading lies?
See, all the Western economists and those come with that Western template are into hiding. Now, this guy, he just keeps on playing with Rahul Gandhi. And I mean, even both of them discussing economics is like butter discussing with butterflies, something like that. So it's just nonsense. And he comes from that thought process of that Western single country reserve currency, where they have this privilege of printing endless currency. The other day there was a news: Apple wasted $10 billion in one project. Now, just tell me if an Indian business can waste $10 billion.
Even a simple rocket going wrong is being complained. We cannot afford.
Because we do not have that endless printing machine. So because that privilege, they were able to do all this kind of innovation. Because when you distribute money for 1%, 2% rates, obviously you will have innovation coming out. No surprise about it. So they exploited that reserve currency status, based on which they got this Google, YouTube, Twitter, Microsoft, stuff like that. Now, once we go into a multipolar, multi-currency world, we already have the foreign minister talking in this interim budget, saying 1 lakh crore corpus at a very low rate of interest for 50 years.
Corpus of 1 lakh crore rupees will be established with 50-year interest-free loan.
So I think we are going in that direction where now the innovation will come up, where students will be able to fetch loans at lower rate of interest, and they would be able to do that kind of innovation. In terms of GDP, first of all, both the indexes I have debunked long back. One is a per capita index, because even if the entire wealth is with one person, the per capita of the country number will come the same. Okay, so it has absolutely no ramification whatsoever when we discuss that as an index. And they'll always quote you this, saying that, oh, your per capita is so low. But this is a family unit economics model, where we consolidate incomes and the per member expenditure comes to be minimum. And we are not a hyper consumption model either. Okay, so this index doesn't work. Second is the GDP formula, which also came with that Bretton Woods of 1945 after the imposition of the dollar. So the GDP index also is designed in a way because they had a printing machine. Say for tomorrow, the entire US economy, nobody works anything. Still the GDP will go up because they can just print it. Now, because in the formula, they have added consumption plus investment. One is a revenue item, other is a capital item. Now, a 10th class kid can tell you that revenue cannot be added to capital to measure performance of a particular period. But since they had this privilege, they kept on shoring up their GDP. Now, the problem is their printing machine is towards its final journey. And we, as we have the most productive population in the world, our GDP numbers are going up.
Yeah, and doesn't matter how much you progress, the opposition always have complaints, and people who have limited
They
knowledge
do not have any vision. Have you heard of any vision for Bharat from them?
nothing, only how to collapse and destroy.
Their simple formula is, if at all they win a state, their formula is bankrupt the state. That's the standard formula they are applying.
Karnataka, Telangana, the living example.
I just want to mention that that's kind of what he's mentioning. That's kind of the US politics for the large part.
Telangana is a little better, but Karnataka is gone for it.
Totally gone as soon as they came.
Development takes the back seat in Karnataka as the Congress government prioritizes the use of state funds to fulfill its election freebie promises.
Remember, Siddharamaiah government had announced massive government schemes ahead of elections in Karnataka. Now we are being told that there is a massive fund crunch.
And people fashionably complain about the inflation. Doesn't matter how much you grow, inflation is increasing, and they complain about onion potato prices. Could you please throw some light on it?
See, understand one thing, that the rest of the world's inflation is a lot of portion of the lifestyle expenses which is being shifted from the West to us. Okay, and the portion of inflation that we have is also based on the kind of capital intensive projects that you go for. Now, we never had this kind of trains. Did we have before? Do we have these numbers of airports, the number of IITs, the number of IIMs that are coming up? So if you want that kind of infrastructure, I mean, if you look at the airports, the way the people are earning money, we need that capital expansion. So if you are doing those kind of capital intensive projects, you are going to have a little bit of more inflation. It's very natural. I mean, you can again go back to those worst trains if you wish to. If you vote them, they will bring that, the opposition party.
That is linked with the lifestyle, and people should be fair enough to adapt to the new dharmic lifestyles when the nation is equally progressing. And then people complain that this is Hindu-centric, others cannot stay. Like Ambedkarji said in the past itself that Hindus and Muslims cannot coexist. The partition was not done properly, and we are still seeing the beating. Let's not get into the controversial aspects of it. So Ankitji, Modiji introduced the concept of wed in India. So what are your thoughts on marriage economics in our country?
See, understand, I'll take both parts of it. One is the Neetamani Cultural Center. The moment that was inaugurated, you got to understand it was established at the doorsteps of the US consulate. Now, since with the financial reset, a lot of Western companies are going to pour in with their wealth and the companies shifting their operations here. This was a symbolism that if you are going to do extreme earth over here, then Dharma is ready to at the gate as a gatekeeper here. Okay. Now that was a symbolism. Besides that, I certainly believe people like Sadhguru, people like Nita Ambani ji, people like Shri Shri, Ramdev Baba, I think these are the biggest geoeconomics assets of the nation. And when you see this family turning up as an elite in any occasion, you will see all the family members along. You will not find any kind of elite Western kind of a misbehavior with anybody. So when your elite represents Dharma, I'm not saying I know them personally or whether they are into Dharma or how much they are. I'm saying what they are portraying on screen. And it is very important what you show on screen, because when you portray that with wealth, this is how we live life, along with that, then that is the messaging which goes to the global powers, which run the Abrahamic economics format, where the way they run their companies, they'll just call one Zoom call and fire 20,000 people. This is their culture. So when they see our elite operate like this, then this is the Sanatan Economics messaging that you are sending up to the world. Now, we also need to understand when the Prime Minister gave that call of Wed in India. Now, a lot of destination wedding expenses which families, elite families, been doing is just passing on our money outside, right? So a big chunk of also money going in terms of admissions to the Western university campuses and all. A huge chunk of money without any credible output coming out of it. So if we are able to stop this, draining of money outside Bharat, then a big money of this can be plowed back into the system in our economy itself, into our own people, right? So, and in any case, we are seeing the Western education campuses collapsing. Around September, I had predicted that Indian students will be killed, and you see about 40 in the last 40 days, 6 are killed. So it's getting worse and worse over there because of the financial crisis, and they do not have any secularism concept. It's just on paper. As soon as a crisis will strike, they will just put it in the dustbin. Okay, so our parents need to understand this thing, because just last one season you had a rush of US visas from, especially from the south. So parents need to understand that the faster we take this next generation towards an entrepreneurship model, the faster will be the sustaining process of our economy, and the faster we will be able to have established a dharmic model of economics in the country.
There is a total misinterpretation of the spiritual gurus. People treat them, spirituality is about donating, living in poor. You can't ride on a bike, you can't wear certain clothes, and all sorts of things. But Sadhguru changed the equation. And then it is important for people to look at the successful business models they have, rather than complaining that this is e-commerce and nonsense. Corporates are coming to seek advices. How do you run this, right? In Isha Business Leadership, the top CEOs come and ask Sadhguru. We give salary to employees, and they don't work like your volunteers. They don't even assure us like your volunteers. How do you do this? Then Sadhguru beautifully answered, we know that.
See, understand what is happening is all our gurus, even in the ancient Bharat times, when you talk about individual liberation, that's a separate section of your spirituality. But our gurus also should have the responsibility of being the civilizational guru. You just can't be spiritual and say, I have nothing to do with this world. Let the world go to hell. Now, there are rishis who would like to do that, take that path. But then we as people of the country also need gurus who are civilizational gurus, who would point at us that these are the challenges you are facing. This should be the path of solution. Do the science of seeking on your own and take your own path. Because if we won't have gurus who are civilizational gurus, we'll again fall in the same pit. And we don't want that. So it is good to see that those who are into spiritual domain also take up a responsibility of this civilization.
Ankitji, in the past, we lost out to the invaders. Very bad phase. We have seen centuries of bad phase, and now we see Bharat is on world stage, progressing. And now, can Bharat provide new leadership to the world?
Well, the path to Vishwa Guru is still far, but at this moment what we can do is the role of Vishwamitra, which the Prime Minister says. So what Bharat can do for you is the positioning right now. Okay, until we reach that economic throne where we can claim that you can come and ask for the guidance. At this moment, what Bharat can do for you is a position. So let me give you an example. See, in the concept of deradicalization, everyone understands that the concept of a convert. Now, your eyes, your skin, your nose, your height, everything is from Prabhu Shri Ram. Okay, irrespective of what fancy dress you do. whether you wear the Arabic clothing or you put up some fancy name of some other country, doesn't matter. Okay, the mirror is clearly showing that you got everything from Prabhu Sri Ram. Now, in this concept of de-radicalization, I think Bharat can have a very big role in Europe, because what I'm seeing is Europe moving towards a path of crusades, because the way they have invited young radicals from the Middle East, choicest, so to speak, that is going to be a big clash. Now, I think Bharat can give a middle path where we say that look, our Mandir, Ayurveda, and Yoga can really help you de-radicalize, like we are helping the Middle East with the same things. So that is the leadership which Bharat can provide in that region. Now, in terms of de-radicalization, we also got to understand how radicalization happened. It has a very clear chronology. It operates in the formula of 90 plus 5 plus 5. There are 5% terrorists whom I say are the most respectable Muslims in the community. The next 5% are the clerics who indoctrinate hate at those specific religious venues. They teach and poison their minds at a young age to do blanket separation between believers and non-believers. These 5% clerics and celebs who give cover fire after the terror attack, saying, no, this is not what we taught, or this is not what is real religion. The next 90% are the most dangerous ones. Okay, because after a terror attack, these 90 are the ones who take over the properties in panic selling after you leave the area. This is how they made 56 countries, 57. Okay, so there's a clear chronology. So the terrorists, that 5% terrorists, are being used by these 90%, because if you catch them and ask them why did they do that, they are very clearly saying, they are not lying. They are saying that we are working for Islam, there should be only Islam, no one else. So they are not lying. They are truthful. They are honest. So the 90% are using this 5% to grab, again, as I said, Abrahamic economics, because they think ready wealth is wealth, that material is wealth. Okay, so there's a clear chronology. First, those 5% would do the terror attack. The next 5% will give cover fire, saying this is not what is real. There are so many good Muslims, 90% are good. The 90% are the ones who, after the terror attack, you panic sell those properties and they are going to take it over. So this is what happens. Say, for example, if I'm to give you what happened in the Middle East, how they turned Islamic. Say there's a lane of 10 shops. The first shop will be bought at premium. They'll buy the first shop in premium. They'll buy the second shop. After 6 months, those incidents will begin. Those kind of problematic incidents, cutting a cow and that kind of stuff. Some random stabbing, heckling, and stuff like that. Remaining 8 shops they are going to get for free. This is how they built 57 nations. Okay, so the 5% terrorists are as much innocent as the victims who get killed. Okay, which means that if you want to devise a de-radicalization model, because this argument will come when you say that I'm going to spend some money so that they have modern education. This argument will come कि वो terrorist तो doctor भी था, तो पढ़ाई करके नहीं हो रहा है. That's not the solution. But you got to understand that 90 plus 5 plus 5, all three will require separate policies. You can't have a blanket policy for the entire community. Now, a lot of converts that we have in this country, my only request to them or expectation is just begin respecting your parents. That's all I'm asking, the Hindu ancestry that you had. So, because they are the real victims of the ancient terrorism which happened with them, that they got converted in some generation. So my understanding is begin that process of healing by discussing within family what happened that in those days, in that generation, and eventually you can start quitting the fancy dress you have adopted from some desert region, because we have desert regions here, but they are even more colorful than, they wear much more colorful clothes than this. Okay, so Middle East is taking that path. I predicted around, I think 6th of Feb something, that only a dash of color in the clothes as a part of de-radicalization can become economies of scale for the kingdom. So I think by 16th, we got their official handle started putting children, small girls with colorful clothes. So we got to understand that Middle East themselves are also trying to dig out their roots, what their connectivity with the Bharatiya Ummah was. So this is the kind of leadership which Bharat can give.
Yes. That is a wonderful transformation. In addition to that 90 plus 5 plus 5, I would like to add one thing about the refugees. When a war happens, it leaves a lot of refugees, thousands and thousands of them. They migrate to countries, and because of the pity and looking at their condition, we invite them. Then they start the actual work.
That's what the concept of secularism is. Secularism means you invite refugees and turn the natives into refugees.
Yeah.
That's what the definition of secularism is. Right? We do not have this concept. Understand, secularism came from those Western countries because their clerics were meddling with the state affairs. And why their clerics were meddling with the state affairs? Because the political thoughts are in the mob objectives of the commandments. Okay, so their clerics continuously meddled with the kings in their daily affairs, which is why they brought up this concept of secularism, saying state and religion separate. Now, what that translated into the Western countries, today they have debate about kosher and halal both need to be banned. They want to separate state from the religion. This is their version of secularism. The secularism that happened in Bharat is totally opposite. Here they are saying accept everything, whatever they do, without even assessing it. Okay, so kosher bhi chalega, halal bhi chalega, and whatever the mess they want to cut a cow, allow it. Okay, so there is a fundamental difference. In fact, even their version of secularism now they want to revisit. Okay, the one which we have was already wrong in any case. So my understanding is that until in the constitution document, it needs to be revised from the beginning. The very first article, India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states, which is where they bring the north-south divide. Because when you say a state, okay, this needs to be revised to Bharat, that is Bharatvarsh, shall be a union of Janapadas. Because when you say Janapada, what that means is where the foot of my citizen is. In this case, you can no more do the north-south divide. You can't do, I'm a Christian, or I have Tamil language, I have a Gujarati language. You can't do all of these because you are saying wherever my citizen puts his foot. Okay, which is why the word states need to be replaced with Janapadas. Now, also in the preamble, socialist, secular, democratic needs to be, according to me, replaced with dharmic, familist, humanist.
Is it happening?
I do not know, but this is I'm suggesting that this is how it should be. Familist, Family. Otherwise, they'll come with feminists.
Wow.
I don't want that.
Okay, I will stop it right here. We're good at around 40 minutes mark. I find this video absolutely fascinating discussion. I think from the whole the way they talk about Sanatan versus Abrahamic, and I think I'm getting more and more into perhaps understanding that how you perceive the rest of the world. And I've mentioned it in many videos about like Abrahamic religions, and that's the term that you're using, which is to me personally very surprising, because that's not how anyone here would view themselves, view the world, or it's just an interesting notion that you've picked up a religion based on of coming out of Abraham. I don't think just to be super clear, no one in the West, and I'm making a massive generalization here, I don't think anyone, like as in like a human like myself, thinks of themselves like I'm an Abrahamic religion descendant, whatever, right? Now, that just to clear up the confusion, it's just that concept, the way you divide that, it does not exist in the West, right? So if you are then arguing points in general, I'm not saying with me on the channel, but in general, you should be aware of that that concept is not something that's present in the West. That's something that is coming out of India, or perhaps Indian way of, I don't know, outside of India maybe there is something else that also has the same view of the world that you guys do, but that's certainly not something that is a normal or you know how you view how you would view yourself in here. It's just very, for me, every time I hear that, it's super strange. It's super strange. Now, I understand what he was trying to say by that, and I think, yeah, he's well, I really find it fascinating, like how they group that, and they say, well, you live on a concept of you only have one life, and I think that's pretty much pretty much what has been instilled here. And this is very much of the kind of religion doing, which again, I know in India, you don't really have. I mean, obviously now you have Christianity and you have other, what you guys call sects. But I think that Hinduism, as we've discussed, is a philosophy, and you have philosophy, but we have religion, which is very different concept, and I think that is exactly right in what he was saying, that this is like science of seeking versus a given belief system. Now, what I really liked towards the end of this part was when he was talking about the West, and I like the fact that he understands it, is that, you know, it has been since the beginning, right? Like, I studied history, and that always irked me when the popes originally in the church, because originally it was just the church, were very much, you know, really wanted to be the kings, right? And this is why, and he's saying that correctly, up until now, that even in Slovakia, so Slovakia is, for example, a heavy Catholic country, and there has been tries to separate the kind of, you know, church things from the political stuff. And this is why, personally, for me, I would consider myself spiritual, because of the things that I've seen the church has done, you know, outside of crusades. But it's just from very early on, all they wanted to do, all the popes really wanted to do, was to rule. I mean, just as simple as that, right? That's, I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here. I think it's just well written in throughout our part of the history. So, and then the thing is, you know, when it comes to the religion, I personally believe that it's been manipulated a lot. Like, when it comes to Jesus, we don't really know how much stuff has been deleted, alerted, amended, and there are huge heaps of books that are sitting in Vatican that no one has ever seen. So it's just really sometimes I find it hard to understand how you can believe just some single thing. Now, it doesn't mean that, maybe, you know, like when you have the 10 Commandments, which I feel like he insinuated that they were bad, but I don't think personally that they are. I think that they are actually, I think, from the Christianity, or from the, let's say, Bible stance, it feels like, I don't want to say it's been misinterpreted, but there are, you know, when I'm, you know, exploring India with you guys and I'm watching certain videos, it feels that there are a lot of concepts, or, you know, the way certain things are done in Christianity, they're basically similar to Hinduism in a way. It is just they talk about it, and there is a symbolism that no one was able maybe to decode. And now that the world is becoming more global, you're able to get the source of knowledge more easily from different culture, and you're starting to keep the score, and you're like, okay, well, now these things are similar, and these things are oddly similar, but they're interpreted in a different way. So I think that my best guess, where I've arrived at, that there's a lot of manipulation by the church, because they wanted to rule, to portray certain things in certain way. And certainly, for example, like the idea of one life, right? You have had a concept in early Catholic Church of yeah, so I don't know, that is not for me to offend anyone or anything, but imagine that you have a concept where you're going to pay rupee for a piece of paper that is going to guarantee your place in heaven, right? So I believe that this kind of model has been really exploited. Now, this is still almost, I'm not saying it's still present in the Catholic Church, but for example, so I'm Lutheran, I'm Protestant, so this is what Martin Luther protested against, so hence the word Protestant. That, you know, there were obviously many things, but I just wanted to pick something as an example, because it's it's just like also to do with the economy of the church, like, we're the church, we're the mediator between you and God, and if you buy this little piece of paper, they're gonna contribute to the running of the church, but also your sins are going to be forgiven. I mean, pretty out of whack idea, but Middle Ages, that perhaps was working really, really, really fine. And obviously, like even now at the Catholic Church, you have a communion, so where you're asking for forgiveness of your sin, but you're going to literally to like I don't know if you guys are aware, to like a little single, like a booth, and you're gonna tell the priest or your sins, and they ask you crazy things. And I've just actually recently, because I'm not Catholic, I've just recently learned about the crazy things that they ask you. And I again, for me, I'm not here to offend anyone, but in my hand, that's crazy, like about your sexual life, and I'm like, wait, what? So I find it personally very strange, and the thing is, why I'm saying that is because in the past, and they used to use the what they call like almost like an ear communion, for the crusades. Like, so they would have all the information, they would inquire all the information. So for example, in Lutheran church, that's not what, let's say, we do, right? Like, you just kind of declare that you're a person of a sin and the God has forgiven you, and that's it. You're not talking to the priest one-on-one. That's just not how it works. So this is why, when we're discussing religions, I see a major difference. So when you just now start putting like Abrahamic religions, which all are so crazy different, like there are many things, for example, I wouldn't agree with, right? So that personally irks me, that this is just like crazy generalization when it comes from your end. So that is what I find actually quite irritating. But I just wanted to demonstrate it, like, we're all free to believe what we want to believe. But yes, going back to the point, he's right. All right. Like, you guys have the science of seeking, and exactly what he had said. Here, you can only be scientist if you are a non-believer, because I think that the idea of God in the Western society is almost, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but it's like kind of someone that gives perhaps a rules, that sits somewhere like almost like a Santa Claus figure, like an old man sitting somewhere up in the skies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and therefore you cannot have, yeah, you have to be like atheist, and in Hinduism it's quite different, that you support the questioning culture, which I quite like, although I think everything in this world needs to be in balance. So I find this conversation super fascinating about like your views on the world. And yeah, I've written actually so many notes, and I just wanted to I had a couple of questions for you guys. um, he was talking just randomly about inflation, and obviously India is the fifth biggest world economy right now, and you are very much an up and coming. And he was talking that the people complain about inflation. Is that correct? Does that actually really happen? Because as he says, that you need to reinvest somehow in order to see the growth. And he was talking about the trains, etc., which I think is pretty cool. Like you get to somehow, like it's all about a balance, as I just mentioned, right? Like what goes up must come down, etc. You have to give and take, and it has to be in balance. So and it was very interesting for me to hear about the entrepreneurship model, and he talks about the families and how it is, and that you're trying to bring in kids to be entrepreneurs. This is really actually happening. I know I think in many ways, Indian society resembles quite a lot Slovak society, where, at least when I was growing up, you know, like you would want to be, your parents would want you to be either a lawyer or a doctor, and everything else did not count. I know that in India you have the third as an engineer. So I know that India is very much entrepreneurial, but I don't know, it didn't occur to me that that's something that you guys are pushing. If you could help me understand how that actually works over there, because it feels like you have this traditional that you want your children to, you know, go to, I don't know, best university, but which parent wouldn't? But I think when you're looking at the Western model, it actually proves quite the contrary. Like the most successful people are actually the one that didn't even finish primary school. So it would be interesting for me to hear your point of view. And what else did I want to do instead? I don't know. There was something else that I wanted to ask. We are. Yeah, I'm not too sure anymore because I can't actually read after myself. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, I kind of, oh yeah. I wanted to a bit more understand on the Mandir economics, and if you could send me maybe a video or something around that. And they talked about the prasad. I'm not too sure I fully understood how that system worked. Yeah, to me it's pretty fascinating. So yeah, if you could let me know about this in the comments so I can read up on this, that would be super duper helpful. And I think with that, that will be it for the part 1 of this video. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I cannot wait to now continue watching that for the part 2. And yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please give a thumbs up, share a like, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you in the part 2 very soon. You take care. Bye-bye.